So, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is now out, and while not completely finished, with Insomniac still providing a ton of support for the game via weekly/bi-weekly updates, I think it's time to start looking towards the future and deciding what we want for the next mainline game, and basically telling Insomniac what worked and what didn't. Now, keep in mind, I do think we're obviously getting at least a single spin-off between 2 and 3, most likely either a Venom game or a Silk game, but it's a lot harder to kind of wishlist/predict that, especially when we don't know what the spin-off will be. For all we know, it could be an MJ game, who really knows, to be honest. But if you would like to see what I want for a Venom or Silk game, then I'd totally be down to make a video for that. However, today I just want to focus on the next mainline entry, that obviously being Marvel's Spider-Man 3. I've split this into two sections, gameplay and story. No soundtrack for this one because I'm not a music guy and don't know how to make a wish list for that. Story will include side missions too, just because it makes sense. Also, obviously this is my personal list, it's not going to be the same as yours and that's okay. Just don't get mad at me if I don't include something here. Either way, feel free to leave your wish list in the comments. With that said, no more wasting time, let's get right into it. So, for the story, I'm going to say this right off the bat. It needs at least 40 missions. Spider-Man 2 had a good story, but its third act was extremely rushed, and I think it's mainly due to being stuffed into only 6 missions. The first game had about 8 missions in comparison, only 2 more, while still being able to make it work. However, the thing with the first game is its main villain was there from the start, and it didn't really introduce any major new plot threads. Just expands on ones already there, or sets up new ones to appear in future games. Whereas this game has a whole ass symbiote invasion, and characters like Scream just kinda come out of nowhere. Scream especially was random as hell, because MJ never even acts negative towards Peter or shows any sign of thinking those thoughts throughout the story, so it just feels random. Venom also lacks any depth and is insanely poorly written, being one of the worst Venom adaptations in recent years. Which brings me to my next point. Please get Green Goblin right. I want to see Norman hit the lowest point in his life before he just gives up and takes the Goblin Serum. I also don't want to wait till Act 3 to see that. Make him take it at the end of Act 1 and then have him be a constant threat throughout the rest of the game. Just fucking shit up and causing destruction for both the city and Peter and Miles' lives. Especially Peter. However, to have this happen, that means we can't be having Superior Spider-Man. I've been ranting about this for weeks. Every basic motherfucker on the planet is saying for Spider-Man 3 they'll do Superior, and like, just shut up, please. For my sake, unless this game is JRPG levels long, and we get like 6 acts, which is insanely doubtful considering the last 2 mainline titles were both about 17 hours long, we are not getting Superior Spider-Man. I just do not see a way they're going to be able to juggle Superior and Green Goblin's origin without one of those getting sidelined. That most likely being Superior. Not to mention, I don't actually know how Superior would work in an open world format, at least from a side mission perspective. Basically anything that requires Peter to exist would need to be locked, and same with anything post Peter getting his body back that requires Otto to be in control. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it, but I do think it'd work better in a level-to-level format similar to Edge of Time or Shattered Dimensions than it would in an open-world format. Speaking of side missions, however, one character I definitely want to see used in those side missions is that of Carnage. I know a lot of people are expecting him to be Spider-Man 2's DLC, however, I do think it'd be great if we had him in Spidey 3 as well, or even a potential Venom game, since he is more of a Venom villain than a Spider-Man villain at this point. Really, I'd like to see them do more with the symbiotes in general. It's not like they just stopped existing after the invasion was stopped. I just really hope they do them justice this time round. I'd also like to see more missions similar to that of Howard, Find Grandpa, Photo Help, Graffiti Trouble, etc. in Spider-Man 3. Just missions that revolve around helping out the city or just sitting and talking with civilians. Really embrace the friendly neighborhood aspect of the character, similar to how Spider-Man 2 already did. Going back to the main story, another hope I have when it comes to pacing is that they're able to mix in Cindy, Miles, and Peter without sidelining anyone. A big issue with Spider-Man 2 was it was too Peter-focused at times. While yes, Miles got some cool moments, he's not really all that involved for most of the story. His storyline only clashes with Peter's when he gets captured by Kraven. until that, he's kind of just sat there, not really doing much. So because of that, with Spider-Man 3 most likely tackling 3 main characters, it makes me worried for how they'll do. This could easily be prevented though if they just gave the main story more time, such as, like I said earlier, at least 40 missions minimum. Give Cindy and Miles as much time as Peter and make them more connected to his story. This is especially easy to do with Goblin by having him terrorize all of their lives instead of just Peter's. Another thing I'd love is that if they do make it so Spider-Man 3 is Peter's last story, I do hope they don't do the basic thing of killing him off. Just have him retire, hell, maybe even do what the CW Flash show did, and have it so MJ is pregnant with May in this game, and Peter is trying to balance Spider-Man alongside being there for May's birth. Plus, with the inclusion of Silk, we're soon going to have 3 Spider-People running around one New York. There's just not much reason for Peter to continue when there's 2 other Spider-People running around and doing what he does, but better in some ways. Other than he wants to, obviously, but I could totally see him wanting to settle down with MJ and watching May grow up, and only being Spider-Man when he really needs to be. The final thing I'd probably want is for some more heroes to show up. By the time Spider-Man 3 releases, Wolverine would have been out for maybe 2 to 3 years, and we already know the Avengers, Wakanda, Doctor Strange, Wong, Daredevil, etc. exist in this universe. So why not have them show up? And yes, I get it, it's a Spider-Man game, but when you use the 2018 game Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2 to establish that this universe is full of superheroes, I feel like it's just weird never having them appear. Not even saying all of them have to appear, just give us a Daredevil or a Fantastic Four team up for at least a mission or 2. Especially if 3's endgame New York is even crazier than 2's. That's probably the final thing I'd ask for from the story though. So what about gameplay? Well, gameplay is probably an even shorter list, to be honest. I think Spider-Man 2 got the gameplay pretty much perfect, but there's still ways to add on to it. For this list, I'm going to assume there'll be another 5-year gap between Spider-Man 2 and 3, which means I'm also assuming this will be a launch title for the PlayStation 6. So keep that in mind while I give my list. First of all, I'd obviously like more of New York to be explorable. Now, I don't live in New York, so correct me if I get anything wrong, but from what I know, there's 3 ways, in my opinion, they could go. Either make the Bronx playable, expand Queens and Brooklyn, or make Staten Island playable. For all 3 ways, though, I would also like them to make Liberty Island playable as well. Now, because we don't know how powerful the PlayStation 6 is going to be since it's years away, they could probably do 2 of these, or even all 3 of them. Chances are they'd probably only do 1 though, but we can't be sure. I'd also like for the game to have all features at launch. While I didn't mind Spider-Man 2 missing things like New Game Plus, or daytime switching that badly, I would still prefer they be there from the start. If it means giving Insomniac a delay to add them, I'm totally fine with that. I just want everything to be included from the start. No waiting 2 months to get features that should already be there. I also think we need some expansions to photo mode. I've said this way too much at this point, but I really do think we need the ability to add other characters into our photos. Hi-Fi Rush did it, I'm sure Insomniac could too. Let us give them custom poses as well, it just makes photos so much more fun, and I think the character mode is just bare bones in Spider-Man 2. The photo mode is already close to perfect, just this little extra thing would make it flawless in my opinion. In terms of swinging, there isn't too much to ask for other than the obvious let us go faster, but then again, Spider-Man 2's swinging is already a pretty good speed. I don't really think it needs to go any faster. I do think there's changes they could make to the wall crawling though, like let us do a slingshot off of a wall, or let us wall run downwards. I'd also like some wall combat similar to what Web of Shadows had, but that's really about it. There's seriously nothing more I could ask of web swinging. They literally made it perfect. For combat, like I said already, wall combat, and also give us more gadgets to work with. That was my big issue with Spider-Man 2's gadget system, where despite the combat being very customizable, there wasn't much in regards to gadgets. Keep the 4 slots, but let us mix and match like they did with the abilities. Also, probably a small thing, but maybe for Silk's combat, give us a ton of web abilities, like what Amazing Spider-Man had in Shattered Dimensions, just so each Spider-Person has a way of differentiating from each other. Peter has the spider arms, Miles has the bioelectricity, and Silk has web attacks. For Miles' gameplay in general, I would also like to see his invisibility used more. While scripting this, I realized they don't use his invisibility at all in Spider-Man 2. It's just kinda there. I would love to see more segments where his invisibility is a key focus. Like, maybe he uses it to snatch a card or something that's restricted. Just make his invisibility more of a feature. I would also like it if Peter still kept his anti-venom powers, but there's a chance he doesn't. Another thing I'm gonna add is that I would like them to expand on the other characters appearing in crimes thing a little more. Maybe have them also be like assists that you call in when you won. I'd also like it if you could maybe have them swinging around with you, just to make the game feel a little more livelier. Like, it'd be so cool to be playing as Miles, and then you could see Cindy or Peter doing a loop-to-loop. And if they need to disappear, maybe they could swing into a building or an alleyway. It's not like this isn't possible either, because this is done a few times throughout the story of Spider-Man 2, so there's definitely a way to make it possible in free roam. And if it really does bug someone, then just make it so it's an option in settings. Also, please give us more podcasts, and also give us post-game calls back. Give Danica more of a character, maybe have her and MJ fight with JJJ, similar to what Danica was already doing in Spider-Man Miles Morales. She serves way too much as a recap for the last mission in Spider-Man 2, and it's just kinda lame because she doesn't really add much. Like, yeah, wow, Spider-Man isn't in his right mind, thank you Danica for pointing out the obvious. She never even once interacts or is brought up by the main cast until the post-game, where she talks to MJ literally once over a call, and that's it. And the last thing I would like to see is the ability to go into story-important locations, and have it so you could look around, see some Easter eggs, speak to characters from the main story, etc. Like, for example, Feast, you could go in there, speak to Gloria or Steph, see how Feast is doing, maybe have Easter eggs for those who played the first 3 games, like someone could reference Roxanne or Martin Lee, etc. Another example would be Peter's home. You could speak to MJ, look around the house, maybe have a collectible be comics, and you could read the first 10 pages of each comic you collect, like a preview sort of thing. And those comics would be viewable in both Miles' apartment and Peter's house. But yeah, that's kinda it for my wish list. I think Spider-Man 2 just got everything near perfect, but there's some stuff I would like to see in Spider-Man 3. Either way, I can't wait to see what Insomniac does. I would like to thank everyone for the fucking overwhelming support on the Spider-Man 2 video. I was going for over a month, so for it to get, as of writing this, 4,000 views is fucking insane. I said this on the community tab where I regularly post any updates regarding the channel, but I am going to go back to doing more casual content where it's just me talking about things I'm interested in on a weekly, maybe bi-weekly basis. With that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.